Happy Tuesday. My name is Wendy Lee from CreativeLeeYours.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the US and thrilled to have you here with me today to do a little bit of paper crafting. Yay, yay, yay. All right, as usual, I have a sneak peek behind me. I had those up last week too, I think. Maybe. So that is a new program I'm getting ready to launch. If you are on my email list, you will get something hopefully in the next couple of days. It is called Cultivated Creativity, and it is going to be a DIY paper crafting subscription kit. Just $39 a month and lots of goodies included. So I will be sharing more information in the coming days on that with my email list, and I'll put some on social media as well. But if you want to be the first to know all the good details, definitely subscribe to my email channel. All right, I'm going to switch the camera over and we're going to get started on our crafty fun today. Yes? All right, perfect. Connie here and Jean and Susan. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's lunchtime for me, so afternoon as well, right? Oh, Jean, it's cold there. Yeah, it's kind of a drizzly, not pretty day here. So it's a good day to be hanging out at home and paper crafting, right? Okay, so today I am featuring the Hues of Happiness product suite. So this is actually my project. You'll see it on my blog tomorrow for the All-Star Tutorial Hop. So this is not my project that's in the tutorial itself. In our hop, we do alternates, but today we're going to talk about and learn how to stamp images that are on top of each other so that you can see one in front of the other. So see how this flower is in front of these flowers? So I'm going to show you guys how to do that if you don't already know. I've remember last week we talked about creating our own designer paper backgrounds with our stamps. So I've done that in the background here. So, and of course, I like to bring in a little bit of vellum to add some softness to it. So it's very, very pretty. And you could use this for so many occasions. I've made this into a birthday card, but I think this would be a great wedding, anniversary. You could change the sentiments out, and this could be a sympathy card as well. Change your colors to be whatever you like, right? Oh, good. Kim, I'm so glad to see you here as well. All right. So again, we are featuring the Happiness Abounds stamp set, which is part of the Hues of Happiness suite that's in our annual catalog. I am using the stamp set today. I am not using the coordinating dies, but I wanted you to be aware that there are coordinating dies, because if you click the link, I will add the complete supply list in the video description after the video. YouTube doesn't allow me to do that beforehand, so I can do it after. So you'll have to hit the show more to see all the details, but you'll have hot links to be able to go click on those and shop right in my store to add any of the products that you need to your shopping cart. So know that the supply list will have the stamp set, but not the bundle. So if you don't have the stamp set and you want the bundle, so you want the dies as well, which are awesome. So they're going to cut out the stamped images, but you've also got these detailed edges here, which is kind of fun, kind of makes it look like a little notebook. And then this is really nice. It cuts a texture out of your layer. So it actually doesn't cut out a piece. It adds texture into your layer and cuts in some holes and stuff. So it's a very, very pretty like trellis look to it. So just know that you will want to search for the bundle version of that if you want the bundle. And then I also wanted to point out this gorgeous Hues of Happiness paper. Again, I'm not using the designer paper on this particular project, but it is stunning. And this has been super popular and has been out of stock quite often. So definitely one to stock up on. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's project. Move some of this out of the way. Oh, good. You love masking and you like the card. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to start with my standard thick white card base, and I'm going to fold it in half. So I will put both the metric and the Imperial measurements for the card in the description as well. I've got that one this time. All right. So I'm bringing in a scrap piece of paper, and I want to stamp the image all over my card base. So let's bring in a foam pad as well, since this is a photopolymer stamp set. I like to bring in the foam pad when I'm using my images sometimes. And we'll bring in our basic gray. Let's slide this over a little bit. Ink pad. Go ahead and do this. So I'm just going to stamp all over the background. Okay. So just pick a spot and start, right? I'm just going to go ahead and I'm using basic gray and I'm just going to kind of nest these flowers in as I work my way around the edge. So you can turn them different directions if you want to. It's entirely up to you, but I want pretty good coverage here. Whoops, got a little sticky on there. It's the hazard of using the cart. It gets sticky sometimes. Oh, so I had a misstamp, but you know what? We won't care about that because we're going to cover it up. So I got lucky. Yay. I like it when that happens, right? You get lucky, not that you misstamp. We all misstamp. It happens sometimes. That's when there's a good place to put a sentiment, right? Or an embellishment. Anytime a misstamp happens, add in an embellishment, right? All right. So I'm going to try to just tuck that in there just a smidge. Hopefully I don't have to try to fill in that. I think it's going to be okay. Let's just check our layers here. So I'm going to check with my Smoky Slate because that's going to kind of cover the background. I think that's going to be just fine. I'm not bothered by that white space at all. If you wanted to, you could use our masking technique that I'm going to show you, and you could add in some more images there, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to leave that alone. I think that looks good. Actually, I'm going to stamp one more flower on the inside. Let's go ahead and bring our design into our card base. Now you could stamp all around just like we did if you wanted to, but I'm just going to put one more flower in there. Perfect. And you know what? I probably should have brought a scrub over. I didn't. So, you know, it's okay. I will not worry about that too much, but we are going to change ink colors with our flower image in just a moment. All right, so we've got this all stamped. Now let's go ahead and stamp our white layer that's going to go on the front. So this is where our masking technique is going to come in. And I hope you guys can see this well enough. I think I'm a little crooked. Let's see if I can get that straightened up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my Memento black ink. And what I want to do is I want to stamp the image that I want in the front first. I know that sounds crazy, but let's do that. So I'm inking it up. Let's move that gray panel out of the way. We don't need that right now. So I'm going to bring in my Memento black, and I'm using Memento black versus Squeeze-On because I'm going to color with Stampin' Blends. So depending on what you're coloring with may make a difference in what ink you want to use. All right, so this is the flower I want the closest to me. Yes? Perfect. All right, now before I stamp the other images, because if I stamp the other images, they're gonna like stamp on top of each other. So let me show you that on the scrap paper. If I stamp an image, right? And then I stamp another image, it's going to stamp on top of each other. It makes a hot mess, right? And there's no one image in front of the other. But I want it to look like one flower is in front of the other flowers. So what I'm going to do is create a mask. I'm grabbing some of my masking paper. So this comes, let's see if I got my little package here. So our Stampin' Up! Masking paper comes in this size here. It's 5 by 7, and it has 12 sheets in here. And on the back, you're going to see that you've got, like there's it allows you to fold it in half and pull the backing paper off through the middle of it versus on the sides. So I'm going to just take this piece that I've already used, and I am going to stamp one of my florals right onto this masking paper. Okay, and then we're going to fussy cut this out. Now, if you don't have masking paper, that's okay. You can use a sticky note as well. The reason I like the masking paper is because sometimes when you do a masking technique with sticky notes, the sticky note will lift on you. And so the masking paper is kind of nice because it's sticky all over. So it's not going to lift on you like a sticky note might. So here again, I'm trying to fussy cut. Now there are dies for this. I could use the dies and cut this flower out. But the problem with that is that the dies have a white, have space, like a border around the outside of the image. And I want this nice and close because I really want it to look like a bouquet that is really just on top of each other, right? So I am cutting this out with my scissors, and I'm trying to cut as close a line, or even cutting that stamped line off, and that's okay. Now I'm trying to use my depth of my scissors here versus the point. I get a much better cut if I do that. And then I try to rotate the paper versus the scissors, because I find that I get a smoother cut and I do a little bit better with that. So that just works best for me. So you have to try and see what works best for you. But I find this the easiest way to do fussy cutting. So some days I am not a fan of fussy cutting. I would much rather cut out something with a die than fussy cut. But sometimes you just need to fussy cut your image, right? Okay, so we've got our mask all cut out. And I've got a couple extra ones that I cut out earlier. Now, I want to go ahead. I'm going to put my paper here, back in here so you can see it. I'm going to take my mask and I'm going to peel the backing paper off. So because I didn't do this over that seam, right, where it made it easy, I'm going to have to kind of mess with this. See if I can get my, take your pick and see if that'll help me get that paper separated. So I just want that backing paper. So it would have been easier to stamp it over the seam of that paper. I showed you how it's separated, but I didn't do it. Oh, Jean, it's reminding you of poppies. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Dawn. So glad you're here as well. All right. So I'm not having good luck getting this apart. Always when you're on video, right? You have trouble. I had absolutely, there we go. I had no trouble this morning getting the backing paper off. Okay. So now this is super sticky. Now, the one thing I found with our masking paper is it's a little too sticky for me. So if I just kind of get some of this tackiness off with my fingers, or better yet, if you've got some lint on your shirt, you can't see me doing this, but I'm taking some lint off my shirt, right? I always have a lint when you wear a black shirt. So I've taken some lint off of my shirt. So this is not quite as sticky. If I don't do that, I'm finding that it's too sticky and it tends to rip my paper. Okay, so that's why I did that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to cover our image that we want in the front with our mask. And I'm just going to lightly push that down. Nice, right? Now we're ready to ink up our image again and stamp. And we can go right over the top, overlapping, not 100% over the top, but I want to offset this a little bit. So there's another flower next to it, right? So I'm going to just go right there. Okay, nice. And then we'll do this other one. It looks like a mess right now, but it'll look better when I'm done. And let's kind of go overlap a little bit more on this one than I did on my original sample, although maybe it will end up very similar. Okay. Put that aside for now. Now, I'm just going to carefully lift this mask. And look how cool that is. So you can see that this flower is right in front of those two. They're behind. So if I wanted to do the whole sheet like this, I could do that. I can continue to put the mask down and continue stamping and have a really nice layered bouquet of flowers. Now, I'm going to take my lovely mask here and I'm going to mask off this floral up here because I want to add some leaves sticking out behind my flowers. And then I've got another mask that I did earlier. We'll lay this one down here. Okay. Oops, look, I ripped it. That's okay. It's not needed. It's fine. And let's see, what did I do with that stem? There we go. We've got a leaf image, and I'm going to add some leaves. My black memento here. So I'm just going to stamp that right over. And because I've got that mask, it's not going to allow that leaf to go over the top of the flower, really. It's going to tuck it right behind it. All right, and let's carefully remove that mask so you can see. Look how great that is. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Perfect. So we've got our gorgeous, gorgeous flowers. I'm going to go ahead and finish my stamping since we've got all our inks out, and then we're going to move to coloring. So let's go ahead and stamp my sentiment. I'm going to bring my basic gray back in. And I'm going to put the wishing you all the happiness you can imagine. I love the sentiments in this stamp set. This way, if I mess it all up, I can flip it over before I go too far on my coloring. Hopefully I won't mess it up, but I can't really see. So that's the issue. Oh, nice, nice, nice. All right, perfect. Now I've got another piece of white that's exactly the same size that I'm going to use for the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp my happy birthday sentiment on that one. Now, if you wanted to bring the flower to this layer as well, you could. Because I stamped it on the inside card base itself, I'm not going to add it on this layer as well, but you could, you totally could. And you could mix and match the different flowers in this stamp set if you'd like to. That's entirely up to you. I stuck with the one flower, but it's up to you on what you want to do. All right, so we'll layer this in just a moment. Let's go ahead and work on our coloring. So I'm going to bring in some Stampin' Blends. Let's start with my leaves. And I'm bringing in Mossy Meadow and Old Olive. So our blends come with a light and a dark of the shade, right? And I like to use the bowl tip. So there's actually two tips. Let's see if this one's blown out. That one's not too bad. So there's a brush tip that's going to give you a little wider coverage. And then there's a bowl tip that's going to give you a little more fine line coverage. I prefer to use the bowl tip. My brush tips tend to be blown out because I like to splatter with them. And when you splatter with your blends, it does kind of take that tip and mesh it up a little bit. But that's okay. That's why they're inexpensive. And if you like to use the brush tip, then you certainly can. And you just should have a different set when you're going to splatter. So I'm just adding in a little bit of the dark Mossy Meadow, trying to outline kind of where I want the darkest point of my leaves to be. You can do this however you want to, really. All right, so I've got a little bit of depth in there. Now I think I'm going to move to my dark olive. Let's double check. Yes, dark olive. And I'm going to color in the leaf. So I brought in the olive because it gives a little bit more of a yellow color than the mossy does. And I'm not too worried about it being colored in solid. To me, if it has a few white specks in there, that doesn't bother me at all. I think that's kind of nice. Now you're like, Wendy, this is not looking good at all. It will. Give me a moment. Oh, I missed that leaf on the dark. And you know what? I think I'm going to pull my scrap back in. What did I do with it? There it is. So I don't color my table too much. Right. And I didn't pre-color, so you guys are going to have to work with me on this. Hopefully you'll see the magic happen as we color. I find that the Stampin' Blends take a little practice, right? To get a good colored image. I've had some people tell me at class, they're like, mine just doesn't look good. Keep trying. It does get better. And the more you do it, the better it is. I'm going to just adding in a little bit of that dark where I missed it. So it doesn't really matter the order. I like to do dark first and then blend out, but I know a lot of people that don't do it that way. All right, now I'm going to pull in my light, yes, light mossy. So I'm not going to use this light olive. I'm just going to take that out of the way. So I'm going to pull in my light mossy meadow, and this is where I'm going to try to blend those colors a little bit. Now, I could have done this color second and then used my old olive to do my blending. Either way, you've got to figure out what works for you. I like it this way. Another thing that I've learned in working with blends is that you need to let them dry a bit before you determine if you're done or not, right? Because sometimes they change the appearance just a bit as the inks dry and set into the paper. So it's really going to absorb down in. You're actually going to see a bleeding on the back of the paper, and I'll show you that in just a moment when I get this colored in. So this is where, when you're using blends, you definitely want to do it on a layer versus a card face, because it is going to bleed through. So see how it's going to bleed through. But see, those leaves are coming out pretty darn good. You don't see those lines like you did. All right, let's do that with the flowers. Now, flowers are going to take me a bit to color. I'm going to start with Sweet Sorbet. I know it seems like a crazy color. And I'm going to take these little tips. I think these look like they're turned over, right? Maybe they're not, but I'm going to take the lightest Sorbet and I am going to put a little highlight. So here I'm going backwards. I did my light color first. Again, it doesn't really matter. I find that You just do what works for you, right? You know, a little bit of light on those tips. I don't have to necessarily stay in the lines, although I probably should try. So you guys color with blends often? Do you love them? Do you hate them? And if so, what do you love or hate about them? I'd love to hear it. It's funny because when they first came out, they were okay, but I didn't have a passion for them. But I find that if I'm going to color, this is kind of my preferred coloring method. I do like watercoloring, but I like controlled watercoloring. Does that make any sense? Okay, let's see. All right, so that was light sorbet. Now I'm going to go other extreme and I'm going to go dark cherry cobbler. I'm going to color my center of my flowers. And I like to use a circular motion when I'm coloring these. Okay, I know this seems really extreme. You're like, oh my God, that looks terrible. So let's add in some of our dark colors here. So we want to put the dark to show that those petals are overlapped, right? So it's a little shadow. So I'm literally just drawing in some lines. You're like, Wendy, this looks terrible, doesn't it? It'll come out, I promise it will. This is how I did the other one. Although I didn't do the sorbet, the late sorbet first, but I don't think that matters. Just outlining those petals so that you can get that dark shadow. Okay, we'll look at this flower here. I should have pre-colored some so you didn't have to watch me color. All right, just a little bit more, and then we're going to switch to our next color. Maybe a little bit in here. Oh, you enjoy them, but could be better. Yeah, I really just think it takes a little bit of practice, Kim, and the more you do it, I think the easier it is. Oh yeah, look at this one. Look how blown out that brush tip is. I use this a lot for splattering. So that's what splattering will do to your tip if you use your blends to splatter. All right, let's go light cherry cobbler next. If I can get the lid off. Oh my goodness. That one did not want to come off. All right, so kind of like I did with the olive, I'm just going to kind of color. And I'm not going to worry about my blending just yet. I'm just going to add in this color, which I know seems strange. I can't tell if that's a leaf for my flower or not. I guess I could draw it in if I want to. I don't think it's supposed to be a leaf. Or a petal, not a leaf. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Let's see, Jean, you said you learned a new technique recently that uses the watercolor pencils as pencils on top of the blend coloring to add more depth and texture. Of course. Yeah, because those watercolor pencils have that, they have a natural texture when you're adding that on. So yes, you could definitely add watercolor pencils coloring over the top of blends and it would be fantastic. 100% agree. So it's a fun way to add that texture, mixing the mediums there. Yeah, that's a great idea. We're keeping it pretty simple today. I'm just going to color that in. I don't know if that's a petal or not. Who knows? I could study it more and try to figure it out, but I'm not going to worry about it. That's one of the things when you're making handmade cards. People don't know what it's supposed to look like. Only you have a feel for what it's supposed to look like. And is there a supposed to, right? There might be an intention, and things don't always work out as we intend them to, do they? So I don't worry about it too much. Okay. It's starting to come together, but you're probably thinking, this is still really ugly, Wendy. Now you could use the color lifter to do the blending. Because it will help blend the colors. It doesn't remove all the color, but it does lift the color a little bit. I find it takes a little bit of the vibrancy out, so I don't love using it. I prefer to do my blending with a lighter color of blend if I can. Just what I'm going to show you in just a moment. Just working my way through. Haven't blended out those harsh lines yet. Almost. Last petal here. Well, two petals. And if this white space down here bothers you, just color it in. Who's going to know, right? You could color in that too if you wanted to. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, that's not looking great, is it? Let's bring in our dark sorbet. And this is what I'm going to use to do my blending. Let's start here. Now, I found that this kind of gives a new vibrancy to the colors, right? And again, remember we talked about you've got to let the colors sit and really absorb into that paper to see what our blending is going to look like in the end. I'm going to color this out. Let me bring in the original, kind of bring that back in so you can kind of see what it's going to turn into as we work through this. So this sweet sorbet is a little lighter color than the cherry cobbler. And so I'm going over my colors to blend those lights and darks. And it's adding in that little bit of vibrant pinky red from the sweet sorbet. So I'm just going over those harsh lines and it puts those highlights in kind of. Now, if you wanted to, when you're done, you could go back over with the latest sorbet again to blend a little bit more. I didn't find I needed it, but I think that's a personal preference, right? You can hear it squeaking because I'm giving it some decent pressure. Really trying to work those colors in together. Just checking to see if you guys are saying anything, got any questions, thinking I'm crazy. That still looks a little harsh there, so I'm going to blend that out a little bit more. Here again, as those colors really work into each other and the paper soaks that up, it kind of almost blends on its own a little bit. Kind of calms down as we work through it. And of course, after the video, when the colors have really had time to sit, it'll look a little different than what we're going to finish up with today while we're together. Okay, so it's kind of working itself out. I think I might take a little bit more. Let's try a little bit of this light sorbet again and kind of work some of that into some of these other little petals here. and over the top. I don't know, I kind of feel like I should just let it sit and do its thing. We'll let that sit for a moment. We'll go ahead and start building some of our layers. We'll do the inside first and let that just dry for a moment. So I'm going to slide this over. And let's work on the inside first. So I'm bringing that vellum layer in that you guys, I'm sure if you follow me, you know I love vellum and I love to add a nice vellum layer. I think it adds a soft touch. Where's my silicone craft sheet? Let's see, where did I bury it? Oh, it's right here because I put my little mask's flowers on it. So I didn't realize I had it still. So just take these. We're going to put these in the stamp case so we have them for the next time we want to use them. Grab my silicone craft sheet. That gets my tape runner running again when I have trouble. And I'm just going to layer this white piece right on top of that smoky slate. Just gives it a subtle touch of color. And then we're going to layer that right on top of our vellum. Whoa, I totally ripped my paper there. I've never done that with stamp and seal before. That's never happened. All right, where are we going? There we go. I've done it with Seal Plus. Seal Plus and I don't always get along, but typically Stamp and Seal I do well with. I just ripped that good, but we fixed it. All right, and then we'll go ahead and get this laid down onto our inside of our card base. I like our Stamp and Seal because it's nice and sticky. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of liquid glue, although sometimes you just have to use liquid glue, right? So it's gorgeous on the inside, just that subtle little border of the gray. You've got the peak of the flower from the bottom there. So you could add, you know, something more on this layer, but I think it's really, really elegant and pretty the way it is. And then it's going to tie in really nice with the front. So let's do the same thing on the front. I am going to adhere this white layer, even though my colors haven't totally settled down. You know, it's not looking as grand as my original one did, right? So my colors still need to settle down a little bit, but I think that's going to blend out just fine as it dries. And you can really see the bleeding through on the back. Now, if this really bothered you and you felt like you needed to color more, do what you need to do. But I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, get my tape runner to go again. And same thing, we're going to layer this right on this narrow smoky slate, right? Now, before I add this to the vellum, I want to add the ribbon to the corners. So I've pulled in some of this, let's see, what is this one called? Metallic Edge Cotton Ribbon. And I'm going to clip off about 2.5 inches or so, a couple pieces. I might not be exact. I wanted to make this look like it was wrapped around the corners, right? So I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back here. I don't know why it's being testy. And then now I can take this ribbon here, lay it in the corner, and then just fold the ends back. And it's going to stay where I want it. Yes? So you can see that on the back there. My adhesive almost wasn't close enough to the corner. So we'll see if we get it a little bit better on the bottom. And so I'm going to do the opposite corner. Same thing. Put my ribbon down and then just fold those ends back. So they kind of go in a direction you wouldn't expect, right? Because you need these to not slide off the corner. So that's why the ribbon kind of does its own thing. Goes where it needs to go, I guess you could say. All right, let's go ahead and pop this up on the vellum. Why not? Love the idea of that. And we're going to pop it up again. I'm going to pop up the vellum layer as well. So we kept this really simple with our stamping. There's no die cutting on this project. I know, can you believe it? No die cutting at all. We did no die cutting. And my elements aren't popped up. So just my layers are popped up. So it's a pretty fast, easy card that you can do. You know, the coloring takes a little more time depending on what you're doing there. But I love that you can customize those flowers. Those roses can be any color rose you want them to be, right? I believe those are roses anyway. not a flower expert, so I could be wrong, but I believe those are roses. All right, making sure that we are not upside down. We're gonna go ahead and pop this up as well. And look, you can't even tell that we don't have the floral as filled in that corner as we do in some of the other corners. It's just gorgeous how it is. Love that. Love it, love it, love it. All right, let's finish this off with a few festive pearls. Loving that these are carrying over from our mini catalog to the next mini catalog. They're beautiful. And just really excited that I'll be able to continue to use them longer in my projects. Oh, you like the ribbon in the corners? Good, Kim, I'm glad you do. Yeah, it's kind of a fun touch to do. I don't do it very often. Actually, it's been a while since I've done it. But I thought it added a nice little touch, a little texture, right? All right, so you've got both the cards side by side. See, this one's been sitting for several hours, and I love how the ink, I don't know if you guys can see it, it almost looks like the petals are textured, right? With the way that the ink settled in on this one. This one hasn't quite done that. It's close, it's getting there. So I'm going to let it sit. I could go back still, even though my card is assembled. I could go back and maybe with the light cherry cobbler, add a little more depth in there. But I'm going to let this sit and make sure that once it's completely dry and had time for those colors to work in, that it really needs more. Because like this petal right here looks like it's going really, really nicely. I've got a few that have some harsh lines that maybe will work themselves out, maybe they won't. All right. I hope that you guys love this project today, and we'll give some coloring with your blends a try if you haven't done that in a while or never tried it, right? You can use any coloring technique to color in these fabulous flowers. But if it's been a while since you've done masking or you've never tried masking, I hope you'll give that a try as well. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining me today. If you like what you're seeing on my channel, please subscribe and don't forget to share it with your crafty friends. Bring them on over. We'd love to have them join us as well. And again, if you want to be in the know of what I have going on as far as events and promotions and all kinds of good stuff, be sure to subscribe to my email list. I do send a free tutorial bundle every month. It's an exclusive tutorial bundle out to my email subscribers, and they seem to really love that. So I hope that you'll decide to join us if you're not already on board. All right. Thank you all. Have a great week, and I will see you again next Tuesday for some more crafty